A little bit of a connection issue when we first started up, but welcome to Kids Are Talking. Thanks for joining us. We are at episode 21, and tonight we're talking about guns and violence. It's a timely show. We decided to run this about 2 weeks ago. We decided to run this, and in light of the recent events, I guess it's a discussion that needs to happen. So before I roll our disclaimer, I just wanted to just have a moment of silence for the lives lost in the recent shooting, and then we will open the discussion to the panel. So thanks for joining us, and hang tight.
I think that we should probably start listening to each other.
I really just want to hear everyone's different perspectives and let everyone know that they're not alone, because we're all going through the same thing. And, you know, if I can inspire hope in any of the listeners, that'd be amazing.
Not only to get what you want in life, but to do things that you want to do to influence the world in the way you want.
It's also very important that you go out of your way to educate yourself. And by watching the show and watching other things and reading things like the show, you are doing your job for that.
Love over hate. There's more love that needs to be out there. First, being empathetic, compassionate, and have a thorough discussion. People listening with compassion and openness is going to go a long way.
Everybody's always going to be struggling with mental health, yet nobody will know about it. A lot of students, a lot of children aren't really given the resources they need. Things are just getting worse, so I think it's really important to try and spread the message. Just get that, extra 5% of feeling secure in their person.
Dr. Don? Can y'all hear me?
Big day today.
I can't. I got tears. I seeing those 4 kids just now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in shock that we were recording the promo for this show at the exact moment that their school was under fire.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is that you were shooting the promo, and I went home and I got lots of calls about what just took place. I was very tired. I think everybody knew when I did that promo. I was tired. I announced that I was tired. I don't think people normally see me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Tired because this has become exhausting to me, this particular issue, as well as many other issues, obviously, that we've talked about for the last 20 weeks. I tonight feel more sad, emotional. This may be the most emotional like they've ever been on any of our shows. And with good reason, and opening, I'm honoring those 4 kids and beautiful spirits, young spirits, innocent victims of what has become. We talk about an epidemic. We've been in a pandemic. This is apocalyptic in another sense, and I'm actually ready to go, Mike. I'm just going to get through the show with sadness, emotion, and by the way, I will say one more thing. You all out there in America and outside of America need to start watching the show. This is the only show I know of that gives kids a voice. Where are you?
You ready?
Where are you? Where are you? The parents, the teachers, the therapists, the kids. We need more input in terms of what kind of things you want us to talk about. We need more enthusiasm in terms of getting on our show and contributing to the conversations, because look at what is going on here. You have an opportunity to listen to kids talk. And one of my things that is really starting to get to me is, where are you?
Well, they're here. They're chatting up the chats. They're ready for the show. So,
well, let's get more and more people on, because we need to start having much more conversations with kids and teenagers in this country about what we're all going through. So let's get it going.
All right, so let's bring out the panels. We got Natalie, Cody, and Ryan are here.
All right. Well, anyway, Natalie, great to have you back. Mental health, I know, is a big issue for you. Cody, welcome back. I think you were last time we were talking about financial literacy, right? It's a little different tonight. And Ryan, glad to have you on. And I'm just going to do a very short thing. I'm just going to give 2 stats tonight, and they're horrifying stats. One is there were 28 school shootings in the United States this year. We're now in December. We've been through COVID. We're still going through COVID. I'll say it one more time, 28 shootings in America this year. My body just got chills went just down through my whole body. How's this stat? This year, at least 651 mass shootings that involved either 4 people being killed or being wounded. And here we are again. Once again, Michigan, a 15-year-old boy. And that's all I really want to say. But I hope you all heard what I just said. And if this isn't an important show to be watching, I can't imagine what else we could do to get through to all of you, how we need everybody to rally together and listen to the 3 of you tonight. So let's start with you, Cody. Great to have you on. And maybe just, as we always do, this is a topic that I know you were interested in talking about. So just give us a little brief introduction as to what you feel is important about being here tonight.
Absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Cody. I'm a sophomore at Indiana University, and I just wanted to be on the show tonight to really, I guess, give my perspective as someone who, just graduated high school, having to deal with the constant anxiety and just worrying about that, this might be the day that I go to school and maybe I will never see my friends again. Maybe I'll never see my parents again, and trying to just learn in that kind of environment. I just wanted to share my perspective.
Well, we welcome it. And Natalie, hello.
Hi, so my name is Natalie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Connecticut, but I go to school in Massachusetts right now at Northeastern University. And I'm on this show because I'm very involved in mental health advocacy and also gun violence prevention. That was actually the first thing I got involved in when I got involved in politics. And growing up in Connecticut, it's something that's really close to my heart and something that I care very deeply about.
Thanks, Natalie. And Ryan, nice to have you on. We haven't had you on the show before. And just tell us a little bit about you and what brings you with us tonight.
I'm Ryan. I'm a high school senior in Connecticut right now. And I previously lived in Sandy Hook, and I got to see the town change over time, especially due to the shooting.
It's unbelievable. We were doing Kids Are Talking in 1999, Mike?
Yeah.
And Littleton, Colorado, it hit, and here we are, 2021. And Natalie, we were talking a little bit backstage before the show. I think, Natalie, we could start with your story. You've had some personal experience in your own school with this, right? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few years ago, there was an active bomb threat in our school, and our school was shut down. A SWAT team came in, cleared the entire school. They found out that it was a false threat. And so we all proceeded with our day. But then later, actually the next year, there was a student in one of my classes who was really struggling. And we were constantly reporting this behavior and reporting the things that he was saying, because he was saying a lot of really troubling things to us, threatening us, things like that. And we were constantly reporting it. And nothing was happening. And then one day, he explicitly said that he had plans to shoot up the school. And I knew that I couldn't just tell my teacher anymore. I had to do something else. So at first I did tell my teacher, and he essentially was just like, yeah, we're aware that he's troubled, like, we're handling it. but I didn't believe that, and I didn't feel safe. And I didn't feel safe for the rest of my classmates either, for the rest of the school. So I went to go report it to the administration of my school, but none of the administration was there. They were all in a meeting. So I went to my guidance counselor. All of the guidance staff was in the same meeting. So I had to report it to the SAT coordinator, who is not trained in mental health, who is not trained to deal with any of these issues. And here I am, scared for my life, scared for the lives of my peers. And she just didn't really know what to do. And eventually she just wrote down what I said. And then the police were contacted and a bunch of other people were contacted. The individual was taken to treatment. He wasn't allowed back at school. And so it did work out. There was no violence or anything. But it created this conversation in my school and my community about how this should not be happening. There was clearly an issue if I tried to report it to multiple avenues and no one was listening. And they kept telling me to come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow, like we can handle it tomorrow. And I kept saying to them, I might be dead tomorrow. Like I cannot just come back tomorrow. So that led to the creation of an emergency response team at my school and the creation of like a school safe climate committee and things like that. But it was just really apparent that there was real lack of resources related to mental health and crises. And I think you can look at Michigan and other places and see the same issues.
So what has happened since then? Has it been safe? The kids feel safer in the school?
Yeah, so now there's like a anonymous tip line. There's a crisis team that's there all the time that you can report to. And then there's a committee that's made up of students and mental health professionals and administrators that work together to see how we can make the school safer. And I would say significantly, I was only there for 3 years because I graduated a year early, but I would say like over the 3 years, I did see a significant shift in how people felt being in school.
And what happened to that kid? Do you know?
I know that he was sent to an inpatient facility and he did not return to my high school.
So you think what finally you think woke up the school with that particular incident? I mean, what do you think was the real dramatic turning point?
I think because the police got involved and they investigated and figured out that it was a credible threat. And because the year before that, when we had the bomb threat, it was basically decided that it was just a person, not like prank calling, there's not a real better word for it, but somebody had just called in from another country saying that I'm going to come into your school and I'm going to blow up the school, but then they realized that they were in another country, so it wasn't a credible threat. Correct.
So how did the police get convinced in this case? I mean, you touched on it.
I honestly don't know. I know that they spoke. I think I'm 90% sure that he had like a list of students that he wanted to kill and the means to do it. And so I think that's how they decided that it was.
So somehow that got exposed, that list. You're not sure how it got exposed. But.
Well, because the police went to, after we reported it, the police went to his house to investigate.
Okay, well, that's certainly crosses over to tonight's incident and what's gone on in all the other shootings in America, right?
Yeah.
All I can say is wow to that. And Cody, you also had a similar experience, am I right? Maybe you could share that with us.
So in my sophomore year of high school, there was a shooting threat. There's been a couple of threats. There were bomb threats. There were shooting threats. And I don't live in a town where violence is prevalent. It's just, I guess high school kids going through a bunch of different things and a bunch of different emotions and handling them in, maybe not the best way, obviously. But in this instance, it was right after, I forget the name of the high school, but it was a really popular, well-published shooting that had happened in another state. And, our principal came onto the intercom and, told all of us that things are going to be different and that we're going to be implementing more security. And people were just really freaked out and scared and nervous. And during that week, there had been a reported, like someone wanted to shoot up the school. The person was not a friend of mine, but I do know his family. And we had gone to school forever since elementary school. And I would have never thought that this person would ever dare to do something like that. And it later came out that it was resulting from bullying. He knew who his targets were and they had done some pretty horrible things to him. and he wasn't in a good place, and he was upset and he was hurt and he was angry, and he said that he wanted to shoot people at the school. They found the information on his phone, and someone else had reported hearing him talk about it, and that's how they found him. I don't know exactly what happened to him afterwards, but I know that he never came back to our school. So
Wow. Another wow for me. And deep sadness tonight for me. As I said, I'm beyond exhaustion with this. I just glad you guys are here. How's that? And Ryan, you have a story to tell as well, right?
Yep. When I was younger, I was born in New Haven, and then I lived in Newtown and Sandy Hook until I was about 7 or so. So I met a lot of the people and made a lot of connections there. And I left about a year before the shooting, but after I went back, the town was completely different. Town had like a completely different vibe, and it just was really depressing going back. And even like if you look it up, like the house prices around like southwestern Connecticut have gone up like have gone up insane amounts, but yet in Newtown, like the prices have gone down, and the town's forever shaken by the shooting that happened, by an event that happened like 9 years ago, right?
Yeah. And they're still trying to get Congress involved and doing all great political things to try to do something about all these handguns and AR-15s. What do you feel the mood is in Newtown now as a result of, what do you feel is different in Newtown now as a result of all of this?
I feel like the town is just like a lot more like depressing to be in. I feel like before everyone was really comfortable with each other, but like these days people feel like more uptight with their kids and stuff. And especially if you go around the parks, there is like a memorial, right, for the shooting that happened, and it's just never the same. I actually went to the same school as the school shooter, Adam Lanza. I went to St. Rose of Lima as a kindergartner.
What's your mood tonight on the show, Ryan?
I feel quite like somber just thinking about it, because my dad was also working in the ER closest to Newtown, Sandy Hook, and he told me about how they were initially planning on sending all the kids over to his hospital, but then after they sent a couple of the victims over, they realized they couldn't save them anymore, so they just decided not to send them anymore.
What's Natalie? What's your mood listening to Ryan talk and listening to Cody talk, and what's going on this week in the news? What is your mood tonight?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling a lot of emotions. This definitely brings up a lot because of the story that I shared, and then growing up in Connecticut, and then being involved in the politics of it. I feel like the only word I can use is emotional, because it's a mix of like anger and sadness and despair. Lots of sad and negative emotions, unfortunately.
And Cody, how about you?
right now, I'm feeling I'm just feeling saddened. It's bringing me back to that day in high school. Just feeling incredibly anxious and nervous. And of course, I have a lot of remorse for the unfortunate victims that, can no longer be here. Just high school kids, literally kids who had their whole lives ahead of them, all of that suddenly stops. It's a horrible feeling, I'll be honest.
Is there anything at this point that the three of you want to say to each other before we go on? Just to say hi or react to each other? Is there anything you want to do with each other at the moment? You don't have to, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. You're all very brave, and your stories are clearly very meaningful on a night like tonight. So why don't I just go on and you can jump in with each other as we evolve on the show. I read up actually this afternoon about some of the details about what happened in Michigan. God, the stories just seem so similar. And it's what's so annoying and frustrating is that I heard that at 10 o'clock, the school called him in with his parent, the 15-year-old boy with his parents. There were journals found. There was some kid that didn't even go to school that day. Hearing there was some knowledge ahead of time about this. His behavior was threatening. People were feeling that there was something odd going on to the point that the parents get called in. And then that was at 10 o'clock. The shooting took place at 1. My understanding is he went back to class. I'm not sure. Is that true, Mike? That's what I think. Either he went back. He did go back to class, Natalie. Is that what happened? So obviously that's extremely disturbing. And this, of course, leads into what is going on. How does that happen? Oh, one other thing. The father on Black Friday bought a handgun. On Friday, Black Friday, buys the handgun, and somehow that kid gets it, which raises an issue in the news. Not a lot, because if you notice, we haven't seen a lot in the news, not as much as we used to see, because I guess there's so much else going on in the world and everybody's so numb from all this and so exhausted from it. But responsible parenting comes into play here too, in terms of these parents on this case, and the responsibility, if you're going to have guns, to be responsible about that your kids don't get their hands on it. So I thought maybe I would introduce this now to all three of you. So maybe you can respond to what I just said and see what you all think about that. Who wants to jump in first? Ryan, you want to jump in to what I just said? Tell me what you feel about it. I'm sickened from it.
Yeah, I think there should probably obviously be more control over the sale of firearms, because especially with I think there's a lot of especially thinking about the Sandy Hook incident, right? Even though the mother herself was not diagnosed with any mental illnesses, they didn't know that her son had all these mental illnesses, and one bad morning and one unfortunate circumstance in which the kid gets a hold of a gun, and then you have 26 lives lost that could have made a big difference in the world. Just forever shook and the surrounding area. I remember, I still remember really vividly that day. I didn't really understand as a 9-year-old or so, or as an 8-year-old. I think it was 9. But during recess, we weren't allowed to go outside because we thought that that the teachers thought that there's another threat. And even though we didn't understand at the moment, I could sort of see the fear of the teachers, fearing that too could happen to our high school, and ever since we've had heightened security around all the campuses. Now you need to ring a bell. It used to be just you can walk into any school, right? But now it's completely different.
Well, now do you all have these drills? I mean, Mike and I were talking in the promo about it. In my days, it was we used to hide under our desks, fear of the bomb. Now you have drills in school, right? Shooting drills. Is that correct? In all the schools? Can you just tell us about that? About what the drills are, what they look like for you in school? I don't even think kids know, or probably kids know because they're doing the drills, but adults don't know, and people that are not in the school system. So maybe you can explain to us what you have to do in your school drills now. You don't go under desks anymore. That was my year. That was in the 60s. Okay. So what does that look like now in the schools? Anyway, that's up for anybody to answer that question.
I can talk about that. So in my school system, at least, we would have lockdown drills where essentially you turn off the lights. So my school, after a lot of things happened, we got a lot of reinforcements done. We got all the windows taken out and put in with bulletproof glass, and they they installed these things on the doors. So the doors would have a little window on them, and they got little shades for the window. So essentially you turn off the lights, you put down the shades, all the doors lock from the outside, and they must be locked at all times. even not during a lockdown drill, just in general, the doors have to be locked and to all classrooms. And then during a lockdown drill, you hide in the corner essentially, and you be quiet. And an administrator will go down and try all the doors to make sure they're locked and like look in the window, see if you can see anyone. And we did those once a month.
Are those still once a month? Is that the same in your two? Is that the same for both of you in your schools too? Same kind of drill and once a month?
Yeah, we have the same kind of drill, but they do it randomly. And then one thing that I would add that's a little bit different for our school, they have less safety precautions, I would say. The doors do lock from the outside, but they kind of told us, we had a training program, and we, each class had to come and sit and listen. And they basically recommended, like, do what you can to survive. So if you know that the shooter's on the other side of the building, then run, leave the building, go out the back door. If you see the shooter, then just run, basically was their advice. So they did recommend to like try and save yourself if you can. They also said that, you'd be scared and obviously you want to call your parents and things like that, but try and text them instead because you don't want to jam the phone lines in case someone has important information that they need to get to the police or to the school.
Wow. Ryan, you want to add anything else to that, to the stories?
I mean, our school or my school has a similar drill, but it's not very often. I think it's like once or twice a year. It's called the secure school drill. So basically where teachers obviously just close all the blinds and then we all just sit in like a dark corner basically and wait until like the principal comes or an administrator comes around and knocks on the door. And,
so I'll take, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ron.
Like all clear. That's it.
So I think what makes it different for the three of you than for Dr. Don in the 1960s, or it was actually early 1960s. When Kennedy was assassinated in '63, they said that was the beginning of, that was the end of innocence in America. Maybe that's true because look at us now. But when we did those drills under the desks, afraid of being bombed and killed, I don't think we took it that seriously as kids then because it seemed like so abstract. It didn't seem possible. And it was almost annoying that we had to do these things to get under our desk. Yet for the three of you, I would think that's not the case, right? It's really much more real, right? It's not annoying that you do these things, right? It's taken seriously by the kids in the schools. Yeah. Ryan, do you agree with that?
I'd say like we all know it's serious, but at the same time, like it could feel like frustrating, especially if we're like taking a test or something and all of a sudden we have to like sit down in the corner, we're answering a question, like watching a movie or something, and then just all gets shut down because of a drill. It feels like a fire drill, sort of preparing for something that the odds of happening are quite low, but we all know that the risk is there, right?
Anything else that the two of you want to say about that? Or has it pretty much been said?
I would say that people definitely take lockdown drills seriously, just because we know how possible it is to happen. For example, I remember I was sitting in my art history class and, everybody was just kind of freaked out. It was a few weeks after our shooting threat had happened. And one of the kids who was a football player, jock, super cool, I thought nothing could scare him and I thought he didn't really care about anything. We heard a loud noise. Maybe someone slammed a door in the hallway and everyone jumped. Everyone kind of was just off for the rest of the class. And then he eventually asked the teacher if she could start shutting the door because he was scared, because all of us are scared. And so when we do those lockdown drills, everyone realizes how important it is. And I think, at least for me, I was always taking mental notes of like, this is the classroom I'm in. This is what it looks like. This is where I could go. And just kind of, it's real and realizing that.
Think about it. I'm thinking when we were kids, we'd ride our bikes around, go to the malls on our bikes, walk around. We'd go to school on our bikes, walk to school. And school was, no one thought about this. And now it can be in a movie theater. We know it's happened in movie theaters. It happens all over. There's no safe place. What does it feel like for you all? You're starting out with your lives. You still have so much more ahead of you. What does it feel like to feel so unsafe? Even something as innocent as going to a movie theater, going to a mall, going to a school, and this is your future. Uh, so I'm curious, and I think everybody's interested to hear how that feels and what you feel we can do about it.
Yeah.
Feel
So,
safer.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
remember a few years ago, I was at a yoga class with my mom, and I remember like looking around, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "The exit." And she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "In case there's a shooting." And that was like one of the first times that it was kind of internalized in her that this is something that I think about all the time, and that people my age think about all the time. Like when I'm with my friends, even we look around and make sure like there's somewhere to go or somewhere to hide, and I constantly do that. And I think that that is something that's very new to our generation, and it's really sad. But we're like you said, fear, and I think this is something I was going to bring up later, but the idea of like secondary trauma or like vicarious trauma, like seeing something like this in the news, and the fact that it can have a real effect on you, like so even though none of us went to the high school of Michigan, we're all like deeply affected by it. And it can affect us the way that trauma experience firsthand can affect us. And since we have such access to like internet and social media and being able to see these things all the time, like I remember there was a shooting in a mosque in Australia, and I clicked on the wrong thing and I watched it live.
Hmm.
I watched it
Yeah.
live on Facebook, and this was like 5 years ago, and it was just so scarring because I was literally, it was like, and it didn't even feel real because you're watching this happen in real life. And so for us to be able to see things like that, images like that on the internet, like occasionally there will be videos that go viral of like violence or just really disturbing things, and you can't really escape it, and then it's ingrained in you.
So how do we make you're the future of our country, all three of you? How do we get to feel safer? How do parents feel? I feel for these parents. It makes me so sad and upset. You have a young child, you're sending your kid off for lunch and education, and to have a childhood, and then you're not sure that they're going to come home alive. I mean, what do we do with this, with these feelings? And anybody else, Cody and Ryan, want to comment on what I'm bringing up about how you feel safely in terms of safety and the future, and what we can do for everybody who's living this nightmare right now?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, the most important thing in my eyes would be better identification of people who are at risk.
You talk about like background checks.
Sure, background checks, making sure that teachers are doing a better job of checking in on their students. And I know that teachers have a lot going on. I know that there's a lot of kids, but it's not okay when someone gets forgotten and overlooked, because things like this can happen. So maybe having more staff in school that, is actually focused on talking to children and evaluating their mental health. I thought of an idea for my school would be to have weekly or maybe bi-weekly check-ins with some of the counselors, because a lot of people never even visit the counselors. I never visited the counselor, just because you just don't really think to do that. But if we have mandatory check-ins and, you have to talk about some things, maybe things that make you uncomfortable, people can just, if they know you, they can tell if you're changing a little bit, if things are up with you, maybe something at home is happening, maybe you're being bullied. And of course, like, it's not an easy thing to come out and admit, but if trained professionals are watching you and talking to you, they'd be able to notice things and then take action from there, just to be preventive.
I love that. And on our 21st show tonight, mental health has been on every show. So there's no way tonight, we can discuss policies all we want. I think tonight we're getting to the heart of it, mental health. And Ryan, you want to comment on this as well? And Natalie, you want to jump in again before I circle back to something else? You want to respond to what Cody just said? You have anything you want to add to it?
I think that mental health is a serious problem in schools in general, because especially in high school, as now the kids are undergoing like severe physical, social changes, right? And are undergoing a lot more academic stress, especially since like grades start to count and stuff, right? And especially with like the ongoing college process and everything, it can become really overwhelming. And I feel like there should definitely be more counselor involvement in students' lives with the checkups. I think Cody's idea is a great idea, but I think currently like the counselors feel kind of absent in general. In fact, like my current school counselor just decided to take like a leave for the past 2 months during the college process, like the most important part of the year, right, for seniors. And I don't know, I feel like there should be more mental health resources available to students at both at the university level and at the high school level.
So he's gone now for 2 months, and what does that mean to you? He just goes off for 2 months.
So like her being gone for like 2 months just sort of tells me like she doesn't really care, right?
Yeah.
And
the whole thing about
and she finds her own like sick days and off time like more important than like the lives of the students.
Yeah, we need people to care, don't we, Ryan?
Yeah, especially because I mean, like this is our future generation, right?
Absolutely. And Cody, Natalie, you want to add to this? Anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Cody's idea and then what Ryan was just saying with the idea. I remember learning this. We have like presentations that come to our school or that came to my high school about like gun violence and things like that. And one thing that always stuck with me is the idea that a person is significantly less likely to hurt a community that they feel a part of. And so someone who feels like they're a part of the school community, like Ryan was saying, that if there are professionals or peers, hopefully both, that care about them, they're much less likely to want to inflict harm on this community. And so then ideas like Cody's of like making sure that people feel like they have people that care about them with like check-ins and things like that. And then also building like a strong student community is really important to preventing this kind of violence.
Yeah, so let me now circle back. We'll do a little bit of going backwards now to meet where we are. This kid is called into school to meet with his parents and the school officials at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 1 o'clock, he's shooting up the school. And by the way, it should be known, it's not just kids that are getting shot. Teachers are getting shot. Some get killed, some get wounded. There were people that discovered journals that he was threatening to kill people. Some kid didn't go back to school. There was some vibe out there, some conspiracy of silence. I don't know what we want to call it. That there was an awareness that this kid was not well. How does that happen? How do we allow that to happen? How does that kid have a meeting with his parents? The parents have to have some idea, hopefully, that there's something not right with their kid. And then he goes, and at 1 o'clock, there's a murder, shootout. Help me. I need help with this. Okay. Dr. Don is feeling very frustrated tonight and sad, and I need your help. What do you want to say about that? All three. I say something about that, please.
It really reminds me of the story that I brought up about the student in my class and how we brought this information multiple times, and there was multiple times that there was not a credible threat, but there was reason to worry, and people weren't worrying. And I think, yeah, it is really frustrating. And honestly, it didn't surprise me when I heard that because of my personal experience and speaking to people where I was like, he literally said to me that he wants to murder me tomorrow. And they were like, come back tomorrow. Like, we're kind of busy right now. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? So it just reminded me of that. And so it didn't really surprise me, which is the most frustrating part, I feel like. And I guess it just shows that there are a lot of people in schools that don't have adequate mental health training, that aren't up to date about, because kids today are going through different things than people were like even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so there needs to be updated training to see signs, because it might be different. It might look different on social media now, and the signs could be drastically different than they were when they got their training in school or whenever. So yeah, it is really frustrating, but to me, it's not surprising, which is also very frustrating.
And so where's the accountability with the school? Where's the accountability with the parents? And if obviously for everybody watching, if kids or other people know what's going on, please come forward.
Yeah.
Come forward. Don't participate in a conspiracy of silence about this. And then the father has a gun, and the kid has his gun. He gets it on black. What's the parent? What do we do with these parents?
Yeah, I don't know. I know they're talking about possibly charging the parents, but I also know that at least in Connecticut, when you're going through a mental health crisis, one of the first things they ask you, or like ask your parents, are there any weapons in the house? And so for this kid to have been evaluated multiple times for his mental health, and for either that question to not be asked or to be ignored, is really concerning.
You two want to jump in and say anything more about this? Or has it all been said already? Perhaps it has. So here's an interesting thing. A lot of people I know, some friends of mine, have guns in their house. The stats reveal, by the way, that having a gun in your house doesn't necessarily protect you. As a matter of fact, what are the odds of you even being able to get to a gun if somebody invades your house? And what's being shown is that a lot of times, people, even if someone's trying to rob your house, they're not really going to shoot you. But there's a lot of shootings that take place because it's self-defense. You've got the gun right there, and the person's getting shot, and they really they're not coming in necessarily to shoot you. What do you all think about that in terms of having guns in the house?
I think that's an interesting topic that I've been reevaluating as of late. Before I moved out and lived on my own, well, I live with roommates now, but before, I didn't really see that there was a need for so many guns to be in circulation. Of course, I still believe that stricter gun rules need to be implemented, stronger background checks, and things of that nature. But now that I am a single female living on my own, I do think about, safety. And I think, what happens if someone breaks into my house to do what? What am I going to do? And I want to be able to protect myself. I don't know if a gun is the answer, but people do have these thoughts of like, I want to be able to protect myself. And if you have a family, you want to be able to protect your family. So it's just like, what do you do?
Natalie and Ryan, you want to jump in on this one? Anything you want to add to that?
I feel like guns, especially in the house, used for self-defense, right? Bought for the purpose of self-defense. A lot of the time, they are actually they get in the hands of the kids.
Well, that's what happened in this case.
Right. There's a lot of accidental shootings, right? And I think it poses a big danger for a lot of the family members. And the odds of a home break-in are not that high to begin with, right? But the odds of harming your own family is quite high.
Yeah, and then this all reminds me of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
We're going to get to the Rittenhouse. I might as well get to Kyle Rittenhouse. We were going to get to him. So go ahead, Natalie. Let's get to Mr. Rittenhouse. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he was 17. So
with an AR-15.
Yeah. So he shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. And then obviously just talking about self-defense that reminded me of this, and just who should have guns. Children should not. People under 18, 100% should not.
How did that kid get the gun? We don't know how the kid got the gun from the father on his Black Friday gift. I know. We don't know, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's just exactly what I was going to say, is that like you were saying, it brings back the idea of responsible parenting and all this stuff. And yeah.
So what about the Kyle Rittenhouse?
More about that, because I don't. Yeah.
Well, how about the Kyle Rittenhouse thing? We can talk. We can have a little bit of politics tonight. I want this to be an emotional and personal. We're doing what I wanted to do tonight, but there's also room for a little bit of this as well. What's he doing with AR-15? My understanding, he goes to the rally. The irony of it all, of course, is that he's going there because he's trying to protect people from the Black Lives Matter rally, and he ends up killing. I think three or four white kids were killed, or boys, people, whatever. Self-defense. The judge. There could be a lot of controversy over that judge's decision. from what I understand, my son-in-law is a prosecutor. He was trying to explain it to me that it depends on the state, it depends on the judge. Yeah, the jury voted him, acquitted him with self-defense. But we're back to, what does he need to take an AR-15 with him?
Yeah.
What is that?
That was one of the main arguments. Is like, who brings a gun to a knife fight type of thing? It's like there was a peaceful protest and he brought an AR-15, and then there were people saying that it had nothing to do with race, but he was bringing it to a Black Lives Matter rally. So clearly, it had something to do with race. And then also, the laws. I forget what state is this? Illinois, Michigan? I don't know. Indiana, one of those. Whatever state that the trial was taking place in. Wisconsin. Sorry, I think it's Wisconsin. Okay,
it was Wisconsin.
Thank you. Yeah. So the laws in Wisconsin were just very poorly worded, where it was something where it's like, you couldn't have like a short barrel or something, but it didn't specifically say long barrel gun or something. So he was able to get out on like a technicality, because in reality, even if he was acquitted for self-defense, there should have been some kind of gun charge, because he was a 17-year-old holding an AR-15. But because of like the technicality and the wording of the laws, he was able to get away with it, which is so not okay, and brings forth the idea that you have to like reevaluate our laws to make sure that they're just and equitable and actually make sense for like modern times.
Do you agree with the verdict?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
You don't agree with the verdict?
I do not. No.
Well, what do you think? Do you think he should have gotten a life sentence?
I believe that he was guilty.
Why do you believe he was guilty and it was a self-defense?
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to mute myself. I don't have the full picture, because this is sometimes with these kinds of things, it's very hard for me to learn about the details in full. I wanted to read in full about the Michigan.
But you feel But why do you feel he was guilty? You felt he should not have been acquitted. Do you have any?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the idea that he was a 17-year-old with an AR-15, I think that alone makes him guilty. Like a child should not have a gun. That is against the law. Mm-hmm. And then second of all, the idea that he was carrying this gun to a peaceful protest. And then I don't know like what exactly happened leading up to him shooting the men, but from an outside perspective, it just seems like if he was bringing a gun to this protest, he had the intent to kill someone.
Okay. And Cody and Ryan, do you have anything you want to say about the Kyle Rittenhouse case?
Yeah,
Cody?
I would say that I have to disagree with the verdict. I think that if you bring a firearm to a peaceful protest, obviously people are going to be scared because no one else has a gun and they weren't intending on hurting anyone. And so now you're fearful of your life. And they said that it was self-defense because there were people, the people who were shot were chasing him. But they're trying to protect themselves and their friends and their families who are here at this protest as well. So they're also trying to do self-defense. So, I mean.
So that's your opinion. And Ryan?
I think a lot of it's like with a case like this, I looked into it. It was like pretty late at night too, so it's probably pretty difficult to see in the darkness. I think it's like 11:30 or 12. So a lot of this is just like hearsay against hearsay, right? So I think in my opinion, I think if he was being chased, it can be quite frightening if you're being chased, right? And I think as like a 17-year-old, he acted impulsively, and then he just fired, right? I think
who knows
really impulsively.
And who knows what his psychology is all about? I haven't seen anything about people talking about Kyle Rittenhouse's psychological makeup, but I'm sure that was a factor. So let me ask you something. Let's look at three things that come into play in our society: racial, socioeconomic, mental health. How much do you think those three weigh in on the gun violence and the violence in America right now? How would you weigh those three? I see those as the three pieces: socioeconomic, racial, and mental health. And I'm just curious to see where you three sit in on that, and where you see you think one is less important, one is not important, they're all important. You have an opinion on that?
What I would say in regards to that is that yes, they are all important. But I would say that people's reasonings, when you break it down into each category, are usually pretty different. And so you have to approach them and try and find solutions within each category, because I feel like it's not a one size fits all kind of situation.
We have to, as we learn on Kids Are Talking, it's not black or white. It's a dialogue of all these different variables. Natalie, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, for sure. I think those kind of they do have an effect on mental health. They have an effect on violence in general. And I just did a project on youth violence in Boston. And something that I thought was really interesting is that even though a majority of school shootings are perpetrated by white males, students still perceive other minority students as the threat in their schools, which I think is really interesting and definitely ties into the racial aspect and stereotypes and different things like this, which can also play into like the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. There are some people that are arguing that if he was Black, then the verdict would have been differently.
Or would there have been more riots in the street, perhaps, if 3 Black kids were killed or 4 Black kids were killed? Perhaps. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, there's definitely that side too. Yeah, and so I think tensions are really high in America right now, and we did the Divided America show for a reason, because we're divided along all these lines, and they all play into these different issues.
How about Cody and Ryan? You want to jump in on say anything else about the subject? Cody? Ryan, go ahead.
I think in terms of like the racial aspect of it, America is like really divided. Right? Like we have all these different movements, and you can tell that it's like each group feels like they're not being represented properly, right? In society, like for example, there's like the Stop Asian Hate movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, and there's like currently a lot of like racial animosity going around, right? And then in terms of the mental health thing, I think the mental health crisis has been a problem that's been ongoing for years, especially with social media becoming more of an issue, and just like overall causing like decreased happiness levels.
How about? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. And then the COVID-19 pandemic was also really bad for the mental health of like and mental well-being of like most people, I imagine, because they're all locked in their houses, and like it's without going outside, it could be like quite mentally strenuous on them. And lastly, it was the socioeconomic aspect of it. I feel like when people are in more desperate socioeconomic settings, as shown by the COVID-19 pandemic, they're more like inclined to resort to violence rather than other methods.
Yeah, look at all the looting going on in San Francisco right now. All the jewelry stores are being robbed, so that's obviously in there. Cody, you want to add to this? Say anything more?
Yeah, I'll just say that the mental health aspect, I think that, when you're a person that, you could be a high schooler involved or at a school that had a school shooting, now you have PTSD. You could be a high schooler that was not involved with the school shooting, and you just, you go to a completely different school and you still have PTSD. Then there's the other side of it where, like Natalie said, most school shootings are performed by white males, but people still perceive Black people to be more dangerous.
Yes.
That's mental strain on us.
Yes.
Having to walk around being, knowing that you're seen as something dangerous when all you are is a person. And that really does weigh on you, and like how you live your life every day. And all of these things are just, I think that if there was more help out there, more help available, more information that people actually read and tried to get for themselves, that we would see a lot of more peace and more understanding as well.
You actually did a great job on that, because you segued into my other agenda tonight, which was, if you look at these shootings, they're white, they're male. They're not female. We're not seeing female. We're seeing male, right? What do you think about that psychologically, economically, whatever, racially? How come we're seeing that the killers are boys, young boys? They're not girls. What is that about?
I think that in our society, and I mean in most societies across the world, it's kind of a known fact that females are more emotional than men are, and all that is making men think that they're not allowed to express the way they feel, or not to the extent that a woman would. And in my example from my high school where we had a shooting threat, this person was a sweet kid, but he didn't know that he didn't know how to express what was going on. He was bullied and he was abused by other boys at the school and felt like he couldn't say anything. And so now all of these things are bundled up, and a lot of anxiety, a lot of, like you said, mental health issues come with that. And then now you have, a spiral effect.
Absolutely.
Women are more, it's more acceptable for women to talk about their experiences, talk about how they feel, even cry. And it's just not like that for men.
Absolutely. Ryan, seeing you're the male on the panel, what would you have to say about this?
I'd say it's definitely true. And like, I've noticed it a lot in my school, especially with the guys with like, who are like more mentally unstable. And they get bullied a lot. And what ends up happening is they get bullied so much that they often have to transfer to a private school, right? Costing their parents like thousands and thousands of dollars a year. Also feel like those students, like whatever they do, they'll get made fun of. And at a certain point, they'll do like anything for like positive attention, and that could turn to violence or like the stuff that could harm other people or severely like.
And more boys, we're seeing it. And why more boys than girls?
I feel like in terms of guys, there's like more of like a public, like there's more of like a herd mentality, right? And then it's very easy to like gang up on one person than to like just like make fun of each other continuously, right? It's much easier to like kick someone when they're down than try to kick them when they're up, right? Even as like a joking matter.
But girls get bullied too. How come the guys are the ones that are doing the shooting? That's
I
up
think
there.
Guys in general tend to resort towards more physical solutions rather than like more emotional solutions. I don't know how to say it.
Natalie, how about you? We're running out of time, but what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, I really believe in more of like a nurture versus nature, like the idea that we kind of raise boys in our society to be more physical, to be more aggressive, to bundle their emotions, like Cody was saying and like Ryan was saying. And I believe that it's more of those issues of like societal issues rather than like biological issues or anything like that. And that if we raised all children equally, allowing them to express their emotions and letting them know that it's okay to have negative emotions sometimes, and you need to like let those out and work through them rather than bundle them up. And if we had better systems in place to prevent bullying and to report bullying and then stop bullying, I think that would help significantly as well.
By the way, for those that are listening, when I was getting my MSW at Columbia University, my internship was at Hastings High School. The internship was we actually went into the school system and had groups, did group therapy with the students in the school. How many of you watching the show, if you are watching this show, if you're a graduate school, an undergraduate school, might consider thinking it might be a great idea to get social services, give kids credit for their internships and their graduate work, to go into a school like Hastings High School and run groups with the middle school and high school kids. There's lots of things you can do. I have one more quick question to ask. Why in America are we seeing these school shootings? And when, as far as I know, we're not seeing them in the rest of the world. It's not happening in Israel. It's not happening, as far as I know, in any other countries, that nowhere near like what's happening in America. Just quickly, tell me what you think about that. How come the United States has all these school shootings? What is it about our culture?
Again, I think it's our culture. I think it's much more culture and nurture more than nature or anything. And the idea that how we view other people. We have a very like individualistic view of society, whereas other cultures have a more of like a cohesive society where they kind of have more of a community. And like I was saying earlier, like you're less likely to hurt a community that you feel a part of. Whereas in America, we kind of have like a every man for himself kind of thing, like fend for yourself kind of thing going on, where it's like you don't really feel empathy, or you're taught not to feel empathy for other humans. Whereas that's just not the case in other cultures.
Anybody else want to jump in very quickly on this?
I think a lot of it has to do with like a prevalence of guns in America in comparison to other countries.
Exactly.
Like there's no country in the world that has as many firearms. I think it's like an unfortunate part of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was created to like have citizens defend themselves against like tyranny, which I think at that time was justified. But these days, I think it's become sort of outdated, and it's like
I think it came up, Mike. You can. I think in North Korea. I'm sorry. Did you say something else, Ryan? Did I miss something? I don't want to interrupt.
That's it.
Right, Mike. Was it you? I think North Korea, where I think only police get guns. So there are certain countries where there are really strict regulations with guns and who can citizens having guns.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of countries besides U.S. obviously where the only ones with guns are police. And
yeah, I mean,
most of the violence there occurs with knives and stabbings and bats, and I guess there's still I mean, you're not going to get away from violence, but you're going to at least minimize the the mass casualties that way.
As far as I'm concerned, by the way, this is a great show. I'll use Mike. This is a great show, Mike. You three are amazing. But I have to tell you something for all the people that are watching this show, and if they're not watching it, it's in the archives. I don't know if Joe Biden said something or not, but this thing that happened in Michigan, and for all of you who are watching this in Sandy Hook, in Florida, in Colorado, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there shouldn't be a day that goes by on the news where what we're talking about tonight should be discussed. It should be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And the three of you said things tonight that should be on TV, in the newspapers, radio, anywhere, every day right now. Despite all the other things going on with COVID variants and abortion, and they're all really big and important. How could something like this happen in America and not be I had to sometimes wait to hear a news story about this week. That's how
I think we're just getting numb to it.
I can't stand it. So each one of you, we do this on Kids Are Talking in the end. Each one of you, we'll start with you, Ryan. Based on what you did tonight and what you experienced tonight, what would you suggest to people in terms of dealing with this issue from tonight? What would you advise people to do with what we talked about tonight? What do you want to tell people?
I'd say wary of like the gun regulation in our country, especially, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of people who shouldn't have access to guns have access to guns, and the access to guns is really prevalent in our country, and I think we need to be careful of that. Some might argue that like having more guns, like if everyone has guns, then it'd be safer. That'd also be an extreme, right? There's multiple extremes you can go by it. I think it's a really difficult stance you could take on, right? Because either you have like no guns, a little bit of guns, where there's like people who shouldn't have them, dangerous people, right? And that's like the kind of scenario that's the most dangerous. And then you have like a scenario with like everyone has guns and there's like fear going around everywhere. I think it's a really difficult stance to take, especially where we are right now.
As always, we have to find the middle ground somewhere. Natalie, quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say check in on people, especially those who seem like they don't feel a sense of community in your classes and your wherever you are, and make sure that we're not letting people fall through the cracks.
I like that. Go ahead, Cody.
I would second what Natalie says. It is your responsibility as well to reach out to your peers, to the kids in your class, to people around you, to make sure that they're okay and check in, because you want the same thing for yourself.
And Mike, come on in here, because I'm going to now give my 2 cents and you give your 2 cents. How about kindness and empathy? And if you see a lot of these shooters, they're suffering from obviously not a lot of kindness and empathy. And there are a lot of misfits. These are obviously kids that are don't have very high self-esteem, angry, victimized. I always had empathy for the kids that were picked on. I hope we all think about the kids that look like they don't fit in, to just be kind and empathetic and don't ignore them. And don't forget that it's not easy to grow up.
It's not.
And
Yeah.
that's what I want to say, Mike. And you want to say anything else?
Yeah.
about
Well,
that?
I was just thinking about when you were the last question you asked about the boys versus the girls, and I did I was reading something talking about how when boys, when they bully each other, they usually, it's usually a physical bullying. They're beating each other up. They're pushing them around. Girls are more like emotionally and psychologically bullying. Like I know I've talked to girls usually say, we boys may be mean, but girls are meaner to each other.
Mhm.
And I think when the boys escalate, they get pushed to the ground. So then a boy brings in a gun. Girls are getting, they're not escalating the same way, because they're on a different level of bullying than the boys are, which probably is better, because then you don't have them walking with AR-15s. But I think it's just a different thing. I mean, the ones that get bullied are the ones that usually do bullying as well. So I mean, that's usually where a lot of these shooters come from. They feel like they've been picked on, and they're trying to one up all the people that picked on them. Unfortunately, it's usually not the ones directly responsible for their pain that end up paying the ultimate price. And I think like the kid said, we need to really just have a conversation. Keep your eyes out. Offer support for the people that need it, and just try to elevate each other.
And pay more attention. You parents that are watching this, kids that are watching this, teachers, psychologists, psychiatrists, people in the helping professions, that there are kids out there that are really not feeling very good, and not feeling like knowing who they are and where they fit in. And they've been bullied. So there's a good chance, you can bet the house, that they'll come back and bully too, because they've been bullied.
Mhm.
So try to be aware. Once again, I'll end on this note of being kind and empathetic, and realizing that it's tough to grow up in. The world we're living in now is really tough to grow up in. And if somebody in school is looking like there's something odd going on, or even if you hear that they're making threats, or they're looking dangerous, or they're looking even suicidal, don't stand back and be passive about it. Be active. And that goes for all of you who are watching the show tonight. Get active, get involved in Kids Are Talking, have dialogues, do what we do on this show. If you have ideas for shows that you want us to do, let's hear from you. Come on our shows, get into our chat room, be part of this, because this is an opportunity that we are offering to the United States of America and the rest of the world to participate and watch what you kids can do on this show, which once again tonight confirms for me the true value of why I've been doing Kids Are Talking for over 25 years. Right, Mike?
That's it. That's what it's all about.
Stay in the back room. Anything else? Was all that you all enjoyed tonight's show? Was it joy? Was it meaningful? Did we learn? Mike?
Yeah.
From all of us, our Kids Are Talking.
Yeah.
I feel incredible compassion for anybody who has lost anybody that is dear to them, no matter how old they are, but particularly the children who are just beginning their lives. God bless you all. I feel tremendous compassion and sadness, and let's all be there and try to improve and feel more hopeful about making a difference, so we don't have to keep watching this go on. And you, Ryan, of course, coming from Sandy Hook, for all you parents, if you're watching tonight, God bless you. And how brave. And I know so many of you are trying to make a difference now with the gun rules and the gun laws and mental health. So we'll see you next week, Mike, right? And you kids stay backstage.
Yep. Thanks again, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Good night.